Good morning, good morning. February 14th. God. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Sorry, just getting a few things set up here. And we'll go through some prep. Let's see, was there any news worth covering? Well, we should definitely look at the earnings schedule for the week. Because we do have some big ones this week, for sure. We got Roblox on Tuesday, Upstart, Airbnb, a lot of these new IPOs are on Tuesday and this week. We've got Shopify, we've got TTD, Nvidia, Crocs, Fastly if you still mess around with that, QuantumScape. This is a pretty big week. Let's see, we got Roku, Palantir, Walmart, Fiverr, Yeti, Dropbox. These, yeah, pretty big week overall. DraftKings. So yeah, always worth a review. Go to Earnings Whispers. We got a lot of earnings this week. I feel like after this week we can, pretty much all of our names have gone through earnings. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Another good note right here. And let's just see if we got any news worth covering. As we know, there was some talks between Putin and Biden over the weekend. A bunch of silly Olympics news. Boeing reaches record $2 billion in e-commerce sales. E-commerce? What are they selling? Well, alright, there's some news on Boeing. Could cause it to run a little bit. Interesting. Goldman Sachs cuts S&P price target $200, even though it's way above. The whole S&P got a downgrade, which is still higher than where we are, so it's still kind of an upgrade. Interesting. As always, go through the upgrades, downgrades. Jefferies downgrades JP Morgan. A little bank fighting. Let's see, is Russia gonna chill out? Inflation reports October is called into question. So we have two looming news catalysts. We have the Russian-Ukraine situation, and we have our rate hikes that are coming. I believe we have a Fed meeting today. So yeah, definitely have a couple of catalysts that are pushing us down and keeping us not in a bull market. But as we have discussed, this can just be, a blip of bad news that they use as a reason to take profit and pull these prices back down just to load them back up again. So definitely something to keep an eye on this week. Are those news catalysts, and if they change and update. So, yes, we had our pullback, held our key levels, pushed through that downtrend off of the squeeze bottoms, up to the top, start to break out of this higher time frame squeeze top. Can't get through that previous high. In fact, look, $1 off, 85, 86. So, couldn't get through, back down we go. I kind of talked on this on a prep last week, but, we've been noticing for a while that we hit these larger time frame squeeze bottoms, we get to the top, they start to break out, and then it just gives it all back. Kind of like the higher time frame squeezes are, when they fire, it's also a chance for immediate reversal, or almost a signal for immediate reversal. But as you can see, overnight, ran back down and tapped some key levels for a bounce. Now we're right back up to opening, basically flat. And a few minutes ago we were, green. So we'll see what we get today. We don't, let me get my compression matrix out. Don't have a lot of squeezes intact, but yes, an NQ has an hourly that's just starting to form. So we might not see the clouds just yet, but they're going to pop up. And if I had to guess, they're probably going to align with this zone up at 44, 25 to 38. And this is zone that we tapped already pre-market, this 43, 47 to 56. So if we, that cloud will start popping up here soon in the next hour, most likely at these two zones above and below. So let's see where we're going today. We are already 1 Keltner down from the mean. So if we can't start to fight back through this zone and get back to liquidity, we've got the daily 200 at 446, the 15 at 4460, the 8 at 4470, and the 21 up at 4500. So those are kind of all the targets to the upside that we need to get back to start to push again. But if we start rejecting this zone and liquidity, we can be heading back to these couple of zones, which we dealt with a couple of weeks ago in this after the sell-off. We held these zones and came back up off of them. So if we can't fight from first Keltner down back through the means to the daily mean, we get rejection, we can be heading back down to second Keltner down, which aligns with the zones that held us up from the last sell-off. NQ, very similar. We're a little bit further than first Keltner down, kind of halfway in between. And the next Keltner down gets us to same zones that we held a couple of weeks ago. We also have these larger time frame daily squeezes starting to pop up. In fact, I want to go back real quick to ES to see if its daily is getting visible. Ah, there we go. So now we've got a daily cloud that aligns with our next zone down. If we go past second Keltner, we've got a daily cloud down here at 4280 to 4240 with that zone cutting through the middle. So that can be a bottom if there is more selling to start the week. And then we'll go back to NQ to get a view of its clouds. Top of the daily cloud aligns with the daily 50. Bottom aligns with this key 13830. And wow, yeah, on Thursday we couldn't get through 15,000, and now we're back at 14,000. So, some levels to watch today. This 1495 to 14155. See if that can hold us up. If not, we might slip down to that 13,974 and the psychological 14,000. But if we can hold these and start to move our way up, we've got this zone up above that used to be support. We'll see if it becomes resistance. And we have the daily 8 and 15 up at about 550. Daily 21 up at around 800. So now that we're in this range, we'll see, do we reject this zone and head back down? Do we head down first to tap the daily squeeze bottom, which we could do that to start the week, and then push off of it. So we'll have to see. Move on to the ready. Fell back to the daily 15, in between the daily 15, daily 8, and this squeeze cloud is a little more formed, so at least we know psychological 2000 pretty much is the bottom of the squeeze, and we've got the daily 15, so we've got a nice 10-point zone there from 2000 to 2010. Let's see if that can hold us, start to send us back up to the top of the squeeze, and the highs from a couple of weeks ago at around 2050. And the mean is, yeah, right there at 2050 as well. So, can we hold this area and head back up to the daily mean to push through and fire this squeeze up? We'll have to see. YM. Daily squeeze settled in. This will be a good gauge. We'll see if YM is going to lead the market down to tapping squeeze bottoms and second Keltner down, or if we bounce at first Keltner to head back to the mean. And we'll go through some individual names. Apple was a great gauge on Friday. Held this main zone that we've been tracking for quite some time, but couldn't get through squeeze top, and all these wicks kept going back down, so down we go. Broke through 170 with some force, and went down a little harder overnight. Now we're back up. So let's see again if first Keltner down can hold us right around 166 to start making a trip back up if we're going to go back and revisit pre-market lows. And no squeezes on Apple to speak of. So basically we'll be working off key levels, Keltners, and moving averages. Do we hold this Keltner and these lows and start making our way back up to 170 and to this zone, which now has pretty much all of liquidity right at it? Or do we just keep going down to the next Keltner, down at 162? Last one is around 158, which is about the bottom of the last sell-off. So we'll see if we make, basically, I meant to cover this earlier, but I'll just use Apple as an example. We're kind of starting to make the beginning of an H, right? We had a sell-off, bounce, now we're curling back over. So we could get all the way back to the bottom of this to complete an H this week. I'm gonna have to watch Apple, Microsoft, big tech to see. There'll be a great gauge for the NASDAQ. But we could bounce at any of these Keltners, make our way up. We don't have to complete the H. But definite target to the downside on a lot of these names is if we complete that H. AMD. AMD completes acquisition of Xilinx. Ooh, interesting. So now that's done. And they sold it back off to the daily 200. So let's see if the 200 can hold it up. Send it back to the daily mean. Got some key levels here at 115, 120, 122. And to the downside, that 105 low. And this zone right under 100. If they're going to take it lower after this acquisition. But we'd like to see it hold the 200 here and get a good dip buy to go back to 120, 130s. Yeah, and we got Nvidia this week. So just like when AMD reported, we could play sympathy plays on Nvidia because they moved together. We could get some interesting trades on AMD and maybe even some lottos out here. So if Nvidia pops hard on earnings, AMD might follow. Amazon, held up pretty well, all things considered in this sell-off. We have our big pop-up after earnings. Always interested to see where that low hits because we have a gap there, right? And then all that sell-off, we did not even get near that low. And in fact, we bounced at it this morning. So I've given a lesson before on how I like to mark gaps, but I'll just give another quick lesson here. So we close down here and we open here and we want to mark the low because that's going to be a key level. And we could have marked this candle. I like to mark the top and bottom, open and close, and you can grab a wick if you want. But if you notice here, where the close was on this candle, we have a gap down and then a gap up. So we actually have two gaps here. So in a way, this wick came down to the second gap, right? So just for fun, normally we don't have multiple gaps right next to each other, but we'll go ahead and extend these out. There's that, and we'll go ahead and extend this one out. There we go. So now we've kind of got our gap zones to track to see if we fill them or bounce at them. So we're already bouncing at the top of the first gap, in the middle of the second gap. So let's see, I could see Amazon coming up to the top, rejecting, starting to head back down. To confirm if we're going to hold this 3012 and psychological 3000, we got the daily 15 right there as well at 29.96, and we've got the first Keltner down at 29.60. So we'll see if Amazon is going to hit the top and come back for a complete gap fill, hit the top, come back just to find some support, and then get back out of this gap zone. Keep an eye on that for Amazon. Not really any squeezes to speak of. Facebook. Beat up. Just rejecting the third Keltner down and staying at about fourth Keltner down. But we've kind of got this definitive 216. We've already bounced it at pre-market. So definitely mark that. See if it can hold. If not, we'll be heading down most likely to 200. But at some point I do expect this to hold and it to start fighting back to at least the daily 8 for a test at 240. Google. Looking a little bit weaker. We've completely filled the gap from earnings and we're right back. And we're bouncing at the low before earnings pre-market here. So definitely mark that 2644. And as we've covered many times, we got a downtrend. We've got a low support. Let's see if we can hold that support, get through the downtrend, and start making our way back to a reversion to the mean. We have it up at 2760. So this is definitely something to keep an eye on. We have all of liquidity here. So let's see if we can fight our way back into this liquidity pocket and push off of it. Or if we're going to retest this 2644. If so, next level down, psychological 2600 and what is that, second Keltner down at 2575. Microsoft. Is that big old daily squeeze we've been watching? Looks like we've tapped it pre-market, starting to get our bounce. So Microsoft for me this week and next is going to be a huge gauge because we've arrived at this daily squeeze bottom, this big old daily squeeze, which is now 10 days in almost. This will mark the 10th day, and we're at the bottom. So this is the point where we should see them pick Microsoft up off of the bottom, get back to the top, which will get us back to our liquidity, sitting in the middle. So, going to be watching Microsoft this week heavily as a gauge, Microsoft and Apple, except Apple doesn't have this nice big squeeze. So, going to use Microsoft as the gauge. We've got second Keltner down here at 287. Cuts through the middle of this. Want to hold that 287 and start taking longs off of that to play back to the mean. 300, 305. Going to be great trades on Microsoft this week off of those 300s, 305s. So, and 295 where the 200 is. So keep an eye on that. Big old gauge this week on that one. Netflix. Slipping a little out of this daily squeeze. So let's see, 4-hour squeeze. Firing to the downside. So let's see, hopefully, just like we saw 4-hour squeezes that fired to the upside and reversed, we could get the same on Netflix here. Kind of firing out and get a reverse. I want to see it hold this 380, 383. Little zone, carry us back up to psychological 400, 402, the daily 15, 406, the daily 8, and the daily 21 just sitting way up at 437. We also have pocket at 404. So let's see if we can get that magnet to a cannon, get us back to the daily mean. On Netflix, it would line up well with what we just reviewed on Microsoft. So 2 big setups for the week I'm going to be watching, although, Netflix tends to go sideways for quite some time. Hopefully, with this starting to fire to the downside, we'll see some buyers step in here to get it back up. Vidi. Fire it up, right back down. Called out these 255s on Friday. God, they went something like $1 to 20 on that drop. They were over 15 bucks in the money. So yeah, fell through the mean and everything on Friday. Did not quite get to the 200, so let's see if we want to go back and retest. You could even mark, what we got, 27, just about. Boom. Ah, stop. Alright, close enough, and drawing, mark that to this, and extend it. Alright, there you go. On Nvidia, I want to see it hold this 226 to 228 if we are going to go back to retest this 230 that we bounced at. And then, yeah, see if we can start making our way back to 241, the daily 15, 246, where VWAP kind of leveled out. The 248 will be an interesting zone. I'm sure we'll react at. So, and 250. Do have this downtrend that we're now back below again. So, let's see if we can get up there. We got the daily mean right at the top of that downtrend. So, targeting the upside, I want to see tech hold using Microsoft, Apple as a gauge, like in Netflix and Nvidia. Do Roku real quick. Top of a daily squeeze. We've got some 30-minute, 1 hour, 2 hours in here. So use those levels. Can we hold this 158, 160 to start making our way back to 168, 170, get through this downtrend into the top of this daily squeeze? Or are we going to give out these fire to the downside, go to the first or second Keltner down, these recent lows, and the squeeze bottom of 144? We do have shop earnings this week. I'll be looking to play it most likely afterwards. Let's go ahead and hit Tesla, and then we'll come back to QQQ and SPY. Tesla was a great short as well. Those 880s and 870s. I know a couple of folks hit those last week for a good trade. We are now down near the daily 200, which is at 824. And we are kind of a little bit closer to that than the daily 8 and 15, which is up at 900. So let's see if we are going to have more downside just to hit these levels of support, 825, 830, take back off again. No squeezes intact, so going to be watching daily means and Keltners to see which ones we start making our way to first. And also just keep an eye on the downtrend. Looks like even trying to get back over 880 today, we'd be running into that and finding some rejection. So keep an eye out there. Now let's check on the Qs. Ooh, past them. Come on. Come on, work with me. Here we go. All right, QQQ. Starting to settle into a daily squeeze, which we are near the bottom. So let's see. We also have a 1 hour starting to form here, the bottom of which is right near pre-market lows, the top of which is back up in the middle of the zone right near 350. So let's see if we are going to go down first to retest pre-market lows, see if those hold or if they give out and we head down to this 336 to 338. If we go down first and we hold this area on the Qs, going to be looking to take longs on the names I've mentioned and most likely on the Qs as well for this week. Trying to get back to the 350. I'll be watching that 350 strike on every expiration this week. It's going to be good key gauge, as well as the 355s and 360s. 355s right near the daily 8 and 15. 360s are back at the mean. So watch those strikes each expiration this week. See if we can find our support and start making our way back up. On SPY, Bit of the same. We've got a daily starting to settle in here down at these zones below. So let's see if we're going to go down, retest these lows, if those give out, just for us to get down to the daily squeeze bottom and these zones that we held in the last sell-off to get a good bounce with a daily squeeze support. Or if we can hold this 1 hour squeeze bottom, pre-market bottom, or pre-market low, and use that as support to get back to a 444 is going to be the key number above to watch for each expiration. So the 445s, the 448s, and the 450s will be on watch all week. Maybe even the 460s gets us back up to the daily 50. And just for fun, we'll check in on SPX because we're going to start, we're going to release it. We're going to stop keeping it in a cage. So, rejected the 21, came on down through liquidity. Since there's no overnight data with SPX, we're going to be lacking in squeezes, right? But we do have apparently a daily that just formed. Ooh, so we've got it at that key 4,300 to 4,280 at the bottom. We've got a Keltner in between. The top of the squeeze is back at 4,680, which gets us back above all of liquidity. So, big old daily squeeze settling in on SPX. Let's see. Looks like we are on a trajectory to visit the bottom first. See if we bounce before it, anything key, like a Keltner or a key level. 4,350, something like that. Or if we make it all the way down here, and then obvious targets above are all of liquidity. So basically from 4,450 up to 4,500, 4,520, we have all of liquidity. So let's see how far we overswing, since we just got back to creating a double top here to head back down. Let's see where we find our feet, and how far we overswing the means, all of the moving averages, because we could just end up chopping in between them for a while the market figures out what it wants to do. But thank you for tuning in today. Hopefully this was helpful for everyone. We'll see you in the trading room, and as always, good luck.